T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Launch Sequence podcast, and welcome back to the California office. We are back in the States for good, and so the background's a little different. I am not as shiny, and it's not late at night, although God, the jet lag is killing me right now. It feels like it's late at night. But today we are joined by the AstroPub to discuss some good old-fashioned CIG Star Citizen drama communication and expectations for the rest of the year. I promise, this is going to be a productive conversation. I think you guys are really going to like it. Thank you, my friend, the pub, the historian, Lorstradamus, Redeemer Lover, for joining me today. How you doing?
I am not a Redeemer lover. I would just say that. You know that
he loves
that
it.
better.
He loves it. He wants it to win the ship showdown.
God, it already did. I'm doing good. I'm going back to school on Tuesday. I've been back into work for the last 2 weeks, but I'm going back to school specifically on that's when the kids come back. It's Tuesday. So
for those who don't know and are wondering why he's saying he's going back to school, he's actually getting his master's in arts and crafts.
Yes, exactly. No, I'm a high school teacher, so it's one of those things. This is the first year that I feel like I'm good. They're not changing things the last minute, so I know what I'm doing.
Nice. That's good.
After 14 years of being a teacher.
Hey, it's gotta start at some point.
I screwed up my calculations. I started working as a teacher in like 2012, so now I am for sure 13 years. This will be my 14th year sort of thing. So
have you do you have a curriculum for Star Ciizen in your class this year?
No. I actively do not tell my kids, because if I tell my kids, because I tell them I'm a streamer, because I bring it up just because you have to kind of bring it up with the kids, because they'll find out eventually if I start talking about it. But yeah, it helps me identify with them a little bit more, because a lot of times I'll walk by and I'll see them watching, a streamer, some cases a streamer I know, and I'm like, I know them. You don't need to watch them right now. You need to do your work. You need to put down the YouTube, or you can put down Twitch, and you're fine. You can just start doing your work.
I don't know. You help with homework problems in your streams. Sometimes you get a couple extra chatters.
But I mean, I'm so paranoid about because it's complicated in terms of relationships with kids outside of classroom, and so I don't tell them where I stream, but I do tell them that I do stream. But as you know, and as many people who watch me know, if I told them that I stream Star Citizen, they'd find me in like 5 minutes. It would be super easy to find me. So
yeah, your whole name's there. It's just funny because I just imagine being like, I stream my off time, and the kids are like, oh, our teacher's a streamer. That's so cool. What do you stream? You playing Death Stranding? You doing some Devil May Cry? You on Marvel Rivals? And you're just like, Star Citizen. Oh. Okay, well, have fun talking to other dads and teachers then.
To be fair, they wouldn't have no idea what it is, but they'd search it up real quick. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's true. Well, dude, I'm always glad to have you on the show. I think the talks are always pretty nice, and today we are meeting to chat about kind of like last week's Inside Star Citizen. Jared came on, gave a little apology explanation of what's going on with the stability of the game, with the resource rush. I think they call it now Race for Stanton. There's like multiple names for each of these updates, and I never know which one to stick with. But the event that's been going on over the last month or two, luckily being extended into 4.3, but obviously running into some problems. So they talked about that. Wanted to discuss all that kind of stuff today. But also talk a little bit about expectations going forward, like the state that the game is at and the way that they're treating it, and how that might change when Squadron releases, how it might not change as well. So first, I want to just open this up as like a blanket question for you. How do you think CIG's been doing in communication this year to the players in a vacuum, but also just kind of compared to previously.
So it's weird because we get more content now than we've ever had before. Every month there's a new patch. So in some ways that is kind of a communication. The fact that we actually have releases that we can play. So they have to talk with us because, you know, like we'll probably have the PTU of 3.1 in 2 weeks, if that, just because CIG is so quick in terms of this. So they just released not 3.1, 4.431.
Yeah, I got what you meant. I was like, wait, 3.1.
3.1. They just released 4.3 like Saturday. So and
over the
because
weekend.
it's such a quick yeah.
Why did it release over the weekend?
That was because of a bug. There was a bug where the wolf wasn't storing properly.
Yeah. But Paul, Mondays and Tuesdays still exist.
Yeah, but CIG wants to get it out now. They just it bothers them because they didn't hit their schedule. They want to get it done.
Yeah, it really just shows how tight their schedule is this year. Because I mean,
Yes.
I'm not saying that they would have delayed the patch in previous years because they were kind of just throwing stuff out. They would do it on Fridays all the time, but like 3 more days doesn't make a big difference if you're doing 4 patches a year.
Yeah, but it does if you're doing a patch a month.
Yeah,
and so that alone has changed how the communication, I think, feels, just the vibes. Because you're getting so much information so quickly, so frequently, it's sort of just like I don't even know how to put it. It's just like you don't need to talk because the game is talking for you. But in terms of actual communication, I wouldn't say it's atrocious, but it's worse. And it's worse for a reason, and that reason is because they're releasing once a month. We've gone down from having a ISC every week, or maybe 3 times a week, to having an ISC once a month.
that has been pain.
And so they have an ISC once a month, at best 2 inside Star Citizens a month, and the ship showcase once a month, which is effectively 2 ISCs, but they're usually really close together. So you have 2 ISCs, 1 to 2 Star Citizen lives, and that's it. And then when you have months that have 4-5 weeks, it's like, oh wow, this feels like nothing. But as a result, we just don't get a lot of video communication, and that can be worse. It's worse for content creators, that's for sure. Because we just don't have a lot of stuff to follow. But I think it doesn't matter as much to the player base. Because, again, the game is releasing, the game is speaking for itself. Unfortunately, it also means the game is speaking for itself, and right now the game, it's better than it has been, but it's still got some problems.
Yeah, it was
got the worst,
but it was tripping over its words.
it has the worst. The worst part is that the game functions. It's just now the problem is all of the things that don't work because the game, because of the normal problems with the game, like latency, game crashes, freight elevators. Like these things, many people wouldn't even be able to get to the point of using some of these things a year ago. Now they can. It's such an important part of the gameplay loop that they're experiencing it, and 50% of the time it's failing, and it's like, I can't play the game. So
it is.
So it's a weird position, I say.
It is a weird. It's weird to think like. I don't want to say that player expectations have really grown that much, but the game has changed quite a bit in the last 2 years compared to all the time before that. The cargo refactor was like a pretty gradual change. It started in 3.18, I think, and then they added like the ability to put stuff in containers, and then they physicalized the containers. They changed kind of how the cargo system worked with ships that randomly spawned boxes versus spawning boxes from 1 SCU up to 32 SCU. Like we didn't even have anything other than one SCU a couple years ago. And then they also then brought in the cargo hangars or the freight elevators, and have started to kind of draw those into these missions and these events and stuff. So yeah, it's certainly changed the way the game has worked, and that puts more focus on things that can break. But the amount of things that can break now are so much larger than a couple years ago. It's kind of disconcerting to then still look at how much there still needs to go to get to full
Yeah.
functionality.
And then CIG is not focusing on features. So as a
Right.
result, like all we're getting is content, and content with features that are currently sometimes working, but a lot of times just broken. And
Yeah.
that's the frustrating part. It's like eventually they got to push it, and just sometimes they don't.
And so,
Um,
well, the like you said, they're not working on features a ton. I mean, they're working on them. They're not focusing on them, at least in our eyes. They're
no
not
direction.
giving
Yeah.
us a lot of ISCs talking about them. They haven't used the EPTU as much as we expected. They're not even really diving that far into this stuff in Star Citizen Live like they would have in years past. Do you think that the communication that they're giving is going to change when they do turn back to that kind of stuff? Like potentially when Squadron comes out? Or do you think we are seeing a CIG that has changed permanently?
CIG that's changed permanently, quite honestly. Because all you have to do is look at how much money they're making. Almost every month this year has been the best month they've ever had of that month. So, like, we've had the best March in terms of funding, the best April. June was the best month they've ever had with funding in total. They made a ton of money. And while I think July ended up being the second best July ever, but it was only like just short of what it was before. They are currently on pace to have like $200 million in a year. It's insane how much money they're making.
Yeah, I think
And
they're 35% up year to date right now.
Yeah, and it's for good reason. It's because one of the things that I think you've talked about and I've talked about is that CIG, their funding spikes happen when they release new patches. It doesn't matter if the ship is good. It doesn't matter if the ship is like functional or not, or like the meta or whatever. It's just when you release a patch, people come play your game because people are looking to play the game. And this last event, 4.3 or 4.2.1, the resource rush or whatever it's called now, they've even in their communications they've talked about how it was bigger than they've ever had. So many people came back to play this specific thing that it broke the servers or broke the game. And I do agree with that. I think that's probably the case. It just from the size and the numbers of like watching the like numbers of SCU that was being turned in, and that you could actually kind of see, you could make some rough calculations into what is actually happening, and it was some insane number of like 200,000 concurrents, which for perspective is like bigger than some Steam games that are like in the top 10. It's not probably not exactly that. It's probably fluctuation, obviously, between the two, but those peaks are insane, even for CIG, even for Star Citizen. So as a result, you can see it's working. CIG's release schedule is working, and unfortunately, part of the victim of that release schedule is going to be CIG's communications. And when I say that, I mean Star Citizen Live and Inside Star Citizen, because in order for them to hit the release cadence, those people they normally would interview have to work. So they're got to be doing work almost every day. So there's just not a lot of time for them to take 5 minutes out of their day or an hour out of their day. Let's be honest, it's not 5 minutes. It's like an hour or two out of their day to interview with Jared and his team. So
a lot of the people that we might talk to or surround ourselves with or even encounter on Reddit, I'm on the subreddit a lot, and I see people talking about the lack of ISC and stuff like that, just kind of being a bummer. One could argue that maybe CIG could both court the people who are looking for good gameplay and content, which is, I think, the majority of the community. Most people are just looking for a good game to play. They're not really that interested in seeing what features are coming in 6 months or 3 months. They just want to know when they're going to get to the game, what they're going to look like. But one could make the argument of like both covering the game and content, but also still doing sprint reports and just like general, like sending general lines of stuff or general video clips to Jared and having him put them together, having the team put them together for an Inside Star Citizen. Why do you think they might not do that even when they start getting back to that level of development outwardly facing?
I just think they'll be too busy. Like, I think because it's important to note that a lot of these folks, when they go on to ISCs, they may not even be paid to do so. It's just Jared's asking them to come on to talk with the community, and they're doing it in their free time. Sometimes they're doing it for pay, but sometimes it's just because they'll give a clip and then they'll fix it on their own free time so it looks better or whatever. There's a lot of the developers are really passionate, but there's just not a lot of free time, I'm imagining, for these developers, just because of the cadence that they're hitting. That doesn't necessarily mean they're like crunching to death. It just means that the 2 hours they would have on a Thursday is now like a half an hour. So because of how they're building things, I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
And it's just harder to do an interview for 30 minutes when, you and I often we do professional online content, partially for a living for me and for a living for you. And it can take, if you have any sort of technical issues, hours to get something up and running. Like even like this with just you and me talking through the internet with the tools we have.
Yeah.
Online or like in person, miking people up, getting the lighting right, getting the audio levels right, getting the right pickups for the different cameras, that can take even longer. And even if you try to preset all that up before you get the person there to talk to them, you never know what's going to happen. We've seen what happens with Zach and Elliot. They're just going to be characters on screen for a bit, and maybe they'll go off on a tangent. And so now what was supposed to be an hour is 3 hours. So
do you think that
it's a logistics thing, I think.
You think, and I hear you. I do think that we have like CIG, ultimately they're a business. They're making a game. Mm-hmm. That game takes money. They're answering to the dollar. And like you said, them taking away Inside Star Citizen has not led to less money. It might have, maybe if they kept the same cadence of updates and stuff, but ultimately I think it's all been dependent, like you said, on the amount of ships and the amount of updates they're putting out and keeping people's attention so that you don't, it's almost like, oh, you know what? What it reminds me of is, you remember the Great Drought in 2016? And all we had to enjoy, it was like the opposite of what we're getting now. We basically got no updates. The game did not move forward for like an entire year. Nothing was happening. But because they were doing so much development on stuff that was just kind of nebulously in the game, they had a regular like 40 plus minute around the verses.
2 hour.
Yeah.
It was like 2
where
hour
they would just
around the verses at times.
B-roll, development, studio updates, all kinds of stuff. And it feels like what the whole 3.x cycle of updates was give information, show cool feature stuff, keep people interested, get money that way. Now it's more build the game, keep it fun, make it playable, get money that way. And what you're saying is we kind of just turned a corner and they're not going back.
I don't think they're going back. I think the only way they go back is if they hire more people or they restructure in terms of like how they do content. I still think they could do more communications, but it's likely going to end up requiring more money effectively. And it's up to CIG if they want to pay for that. Like incentivizing people to stay after work to talk more, or diversifying how they talk. Like for instance, I've talked about the monthly reports. You and I read the monthly reports. You do a summary and a full read through. I do a full read through, and we do this as content. I've said for a long time, and I know I get some pushback from the community on this, but if they did the monthly report where Jared is like talking about the monthly report with B-roll in the background, just reads through the monthly report and then has B-roll. Even if it's not directly linked to the item, it's just stuff that they have. Because I guarantee you the teams that do all of the capture, they have access to the latest builds, so they could probably pull some of this stuff up themselves in the builds to show off. But how long is your full read-throughs typically of a monthly report?
God, they can get long.
Yeah,
I mean, I've hit 2 hours.
30 minutes and an hour and a half to 2 hours. They can be a long time. So that would be a lot of work, but it would be less directly involving the developers and more involving just the content team. And what would that function? It wouldn't make everyone happy, but I think it would make a lot of people happy because all they want is content. They want video. They want a video to show that they can watch or they can have in the background. And while that doesn't show progress, it's not something that's like, oh yeah, well, this is 100% we're going to see progress, because a lot of people are like, I want to see it in the game before I see it. I think it would definitely make people feel better about, oh, they're working on this, they're working on that kind of thing. But like that's just an example. But I think they will either have to fundamentally change how they do content in order to keep up with the sort of cadence that they had before, or this is just the new cadence.
It is funny you mention that, because that's what the Around the Verses used to be, which is the monthly reports. They just split them out and put them as text. And the monthly report still is probably the most clear sign of any bit of open development we still get. I mean, the progress tracker is
dead. It's dead.
Yeah, they can update it, but it doesn't tell us.
Updated
much.
Every 6 months,
Yeah, the roadmap is whatever's happening in the next month, which we already know because we're playing it on Evocati and PTU. So
yeah,
the monthly report is really it. And then I do appreciate that we do have plenty of devs who will go on, I can't say plenty considering the size of the company, but a few devs will go on Spectrum and answer some questions here and there. We obviously get like Star Ciizen and stuff where information is still coming out of, and maybe there's a mention here or there on Star Ciizen Live of stuff, but then it's just all very decentralized the way that they give that information out, and I think that leads to people thinking that something's not being worked on when it is.
Because not everyone watches you or me. They don't. And I'm not saying like, only us. We're the only 2 Star Ciizen content creators worth watching. No, what I'm saying is like you, me, Mac, Board.
Yeah, anybody. Anybody who's not associated with a company.
All of that people, everyone you look at who does Star Ciizen content who isn't a CIG employee, those people are a tiny fraction of the community. Like, you can see the glimpses we've been able to see about online concurrency for Star Ciizen. It's levels that many games have never hit that are huge popular AAA titles. And so those people are not all going to go look for content about updates to Star Ciizen. They're just going to play the game. And that list has gone probably higher in terms of the number of people who just play the game. And if you're relying on me or Tomato to relay information that was posted on Spectrum by a senior environmental artist to figure out what's going on with Nyx, that's just not a good distribution of information. Like, no one's going to find that. So it kind of has to come through the official channels. But even then, the official channels don't always catch everybody. You can look at their YouTube videos, and while they usually do pretty good, I don't think they break 100,000 usually often. No. It's usually like 60, 70,000 is what their typical view count is, which is not bad, but it's tiny compared to what a good YouTuber tends to be, or even if you look at like AAA and other popular indie devs in terms of like their videos get. So
it ends up culminating into a culture of trust me, bro, because everything is just kind of like, it was said somewhere here and it's hard to reference, but it's there, dude. Just trust me. They talked about it.
And then we have problems of telephone where someone's like, CIG canceled the thing that I really want, and it's like, no, they didn't.
What are you
talking about?
The latest I heard was that CIG had said that they were going to work on nothing but bug fixes in 2025.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, they're not gonna make money. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Focus on fixing the game, but like they still gotta make some money. But anyways, let's talk about this most recent sort of communication. Honestly, the communication highlight. I think it's a chant, one of those times when they have done some messaging to the community, and most people come away with a positive feeling about it. Now, that's okay. You can feel positive about an apology, but what actually is going to back it up? We've seen apologies from CIG before in the past. They acknowledge things are rough. This time they are talking about freight elevators, a fix that many were hoping for before an event like this would have come up, but now has been made very apparent to everybody who plays this game that it's a problem. Should they be doing something more significant now? Actually, hold on. Before we say that, Jared did mention things that they were going to be doing. So how about, from your understanding, what does it sound like they're going to be doing right now in regards to this? And then if you could tell us kind of your thoughts on this how this all went down from your perspective and how CIG handled this.
Complicated relationship with this one, because I like what Jared did, but as I said before, unless it's in the game, most people don't care, because most people are just there for the game. While it's nice to have it, I think majority of people in the comments and the feelings I've gotten is that they're glad that this happened. The fundamental issue is that, I don't know how to put this in the right way. The fundamental issue is that they get to the point where they have to do these videos. There's like, freight elevators was released in August of last year. It's been around for a year. Anybody who has done any sort of trading for the last year has known that the outpost elevators break. They break all the time. They break frequently. So nobody takes missions to outposts because they break.
It's like literally in people's tutorials to not do those missions.
Exactly. And it's been like that for 9 months. I'll be generous and say 9 months. It's been like a year since that happened.
Yeah, dude, we couldn't even access them a year ago. Remember, it took had to give them a couple weeks to get it fixed.
So if that's the case, when Jared comes on and goes, listen, it didn't break until hundreds of thousands of people came through, and I'm sorry, that's a lie. We've known that they've been broken for a year. And it's you can't just sit there and say, well, we didn't know until we have the volume. And it's like, do you just not look at your data? And that's the problem, is that like, it feels like they're trying to be like, well, listen, we'll explain. It's not an apology, it's an explanation. And when you hit something with that explanation, it's hard to go, like, you just go, but that's a lie. Like, that's not the truth. We've known that for a long time. And it undercuts the message, which is like, everything else I agree with what they were saying. It feels like all of the other things. That feels like they threw that in as a sort of an attempt of an explanation to try to calm people down. But it didn't calm me down. I wanted to say more very specific things about it, but I don't want to, I'm trying to keep it PG. Because I don't know who told him to say it. I don't know if it was he himself that said it. I don't know if somebody else instructed him to like not say it. I do know from the people I've talked to at CIG that all of their communications are filtered. So anything that is pushed out, even Jared's videos, has to be reviewed by management in order to be approved. And so like, they'll never apologize. They'll explain, but they'll never apologize. And I'm guessing it's a legal issue. Like, if they apologize and admit a fault, then there could be lawsuits or something like that. I don't know what the degree is. It's more complicated than just Chris Roberts has an ego, as far as I can understand. But that's kind of rubs me the wrong way. So like, my general feeling of it was good. All up except for that one spot was good.
The spot of being like, it ended up being more than we expected, and that broke everything, kind of. Yeah.
Rather than admitting that they've been broken for a while, and Jared even talked about it. They started trying to fix it last month. like July was when they put a task force together to fix this problem. And I'd heard CIG mention that like they were trying to fix it. It was 4.2, 4.2.1, and 4.3 was their main focus so like July through August, they had a team put together to focus on freight elevators to try to fix the problems. Because they knew it was going to be a problem going into the whole thing. So they wanted to have a team together to get ready so they, in case something went wrong more than they thought. And I 100% believe that they did not anticipate the volume. And they thought they had a fix in there that was going to work for the usual volume, and then it got like tripled. And they were just, but the way it was worded is wrong. But I do think that overall it was a good message. What was the second part of that? It was like how are they going to
just kind of how do you think how have they handled this? Because like you said, this is something that people have been saying has been broken all year, and they put this into Evocati, and people in Evocati was like, guys, this isn't going to work with the elevator. Like, it was clear to everybody who has taken part in a heavy amount of cargo hauling that this was going to be a problem unless they had something, something up their sleeve that they were ready to deploy with 4.2.1 to fix it. So I'm like, how does this look to you? That, like you said, they put this out. Somebody should have known that it was broken. And then instead of kind of saying that, they are saying, well, we're going to fix it, and here is our statement about it, because we've seen statements like this before. Sometimes even it gets bad enough where we get a letter from the chairman. But like, do you think that they're handling this well, or do they need to figure something out fundamental to stop this kind of thing from happening?
Handling it well, but I also don't know how they would be able to handle it differently, honestly. Because the problem is the way you handle this, in my opinion, and based off of my experience, is trying to be as open and honest as possible. But at the same time, CIG is a multinational company of 1,000+ employees. And you don't know how much you can share, because it could be that, I forgot the name. I'm forgetting his name. The developer who actually built the freight elevators, who's left to go work for Blizzard.
Chad McKinney.
Chad McKinney. So it could be that Chad McKinney, when he left, there were some fundamental information, some institutional knowledge, which was lost when he left. And so they needed to dive into it to learn how it functioned in order to fix it. But you can't say that because it could be, because if you said that, you are admitting fault, which could be a problem. You are releasing information about an employee who's no longer an employee, and we don't know why Chad left. It's more than likely it's because he didn't want to leave LA, because he lived in LA and they closed down the LA office. And they didn't want him to work remote. So, that sort of thing happens. That's happened before at CIG in certain places. But you can't say that. You can't, because of like California labor laws and other things like that. So like, it's a lot more complicated than just do this, because there's probably some, internal politics, actual politics in the countries that they work in, and also like situations which are legally complicated. So take everything I say with a grain of salt when I say how they should be handling this, in my opinion, is by admitting at the beginning of the patch what's wrong. So like, we're going to release this. The freight elevators may not work. So if you attempt to do this with the freight elevators, know that they will not work. And I don't mean bugs will happen, generic statement. I mean specific statements that are stated about the problems of the patch that they know were probably going to be an issue.
You think that would just scare people away? They just don't want to risk those people not coming in to try it?
100%. That's why they're not doing that. But I think that by doing that, they would reduce the amount of people coming in, which would reduce the amount of heartache and problems they were having. But they're a 1,000-person company. They have to make money. And every single month this year, they've made record amounts of money.
Right. That
So
So I just released a video on Space Tomato 2 a couple days ago that was kind of just looking at the fact that they are definitely winning in terms of funding and making money, getting new accounts added compared to last year, compared to many other years in terms of money at least, they are winning big time there. But they're also hurting the community by not just releasing stuff like this, but releasing it with so little explanation. I mean, you left people for 3 weeks to just kind of bounce back and forth off of each other. Oh, they're running tests. This is all planned. This is all part of it. And you have other people who are getting angry about that. No, it's not. They're incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. And it creates this divisive arguing in the community when they could have just laid down the law in the first week. And I do wonder, is it all just short-term pain? Is everybody going to forget about this and then they'll make the money and make the game and yada yada? Who remembers July of 2025?
I mean, you and I will always remember July of 2025. But like, I remember 318. I remember, 3.0. I remember the frames per seconds per frame rather than frames per second.
Oh my
I
gosh!
You just mentioned the drought. How many people will remember 2016? It's almost a decade ago. A lot of folks. I've been seeing people on my streams.
Oh my gosh.
So like, how many people who have played Star Ciizen, and there's a lot, who only bought the game last month or this year. I've seen them come to my channel and talk and ask questions, and I'm like, there's a huge number of new people coming in now, and there have been in the last couple of years. Like, their Star Citizen experience that they're frustrated about was 4.0, and you and I are sitting here being like, you don't remember the hard times. You weren't born in the hard times.
Back in my day.
Yeah.
Vietnam flashbacks. Like, it's definitely, it depends on when you jump in. It changes your context a lot. You think that's ruining new players?
No, I don't think it's ruining new players, but I do think it's important to remember that, like, a lot of this stuff is just transitory. It's temporary. If CIG manages to let's talk about the most recent release, Onyx. The Onyx facilities are amazing. They are some of the best content that CIG has ever released. And are there some issues? Every so often, but it's just sort of Star Citizen issues. But you can see the development, you can see the mission teams, you can see the improvements of AI, you can see the improvement, like, just all around improvements, the improvements to the missions, like, everything is so much better because of the what they've been learning how to do and how to make things. And people will forget about this issue in 3.1 or when CitizenCon Direct comes out. So, like, people's memories are short in terms of, as long as they can enjoy the game, they don't really care. Now, some people will hold a grudge. Many of you viewers who are watching right now probably hold a grudge or have completely stopped playing Star Citizen because of a bug, and then will only come back after those fixes happen.
Reasonable.
I've seen people who, and I've seen people who come in recently who are like, have they solved the 30K issue? And it's like for 6 months they've solved any of those problems. What are we talking about? So, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, I haven't played Star Citizen since 2018. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, when people are coming in, they're like, what's changed in the last 3 years? And I'm like, bro, how am I supposed to just whip that up?
And that's a good example. Like, so much has changed year on year for the last 5 years that the game is fundamentally different. But most people, like, I struggle to remember a time before freight elevators. They've become such an ingrained part of my experience in Star Citizen that I remember playing without great freight elevators, but it feels like they've always been there. Same with the inventory system, that kind of stuff. I think just as we move forward and new things are added and things are changed, that just becomes people's new default. And so they move away from that. So I don't think it's necessarily that this is going to ruin them forever or whatever. It's just, there are waves, and I think CIG needs to learn how to ride them better until 1.0 is released. And even post 1.0, they're going to have issues, but And you brought up Squadron earlier. I think Squadron is a big part of that. When Squadron is released, a lot of the doubt that people have about Star Citizen will go away if Squadron is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might embolden that doubt. So when it comes down to it, they still clearly have plenty of time to continue building this game. Whether it's releasing content and keeping people busy, whether it's working on factions and lore, building the main storyline, adding features, Maelstrom, engineering, the things that we've been waiting for. We all know that they have to come in at some point. So we know that there's going to be blusters as well at some point. And what I think is really, what I would say is the most important question to ask in the context of this, messaging and understanding they sent here and all the stuff they still need to work on is how can they better prepare and how can they better handle these situations? I think you've already said it, but just to sum it up, what do they need to do to make sure that even if they want to sell this as like an early access game, everybody come in, you're no longer testing an alpha, you are playing a game that is living and breathing with you. What can they do to make these sorts of things not go down so terribly for freaking weeks on end in the long run?
I think they need to have a PR person. It's gonna sound weird, but they don't have public relations. This doesn't exist in Star Citizen. And as much as that sucks, because like I know when I say PR person, there are people who are in the audience who physically cringed. Physically
somebody fell out of their chair.
No. Because they want it to feel like Star Citizen is still a ragtag group of rebel devs who are trying to challenge the industry by proving that space games and computer games are still viable. But it's like, it was 2012. Space games have been popular since then.
A lot of good space games now. Yeah, they're good, dude. They're looking good.
Computer games have come back with a vengeance over the last, just from computers rather than just consoles. So like, it's different now. And CIG is a 1,000-person company over multiple countries. They need to have a professional, PR person to, public relations person to like walk them through these crises. They just need somebody who's used to dealing with the public and learning how this community specifically works, and then adjusting and adapting their responses with that. Will it sound more corporate and slick? Certainly. Is it the only way they can approach things? No. But they don't have anyone on staff who can deal with those sort of things, which is sort of concerning considering Squadron 42 is around the corner, and having somebody on staff to do that would probably be good just to help manage like which devs are supposed to go where for which interviews,
Yeah.
And that's not Tyler Whitkin doing that job, because Tyler's got a bunch of other things to do. Ulfa's got a bunch of other things to do. Freya's got a bunch of other things to do. They all have, Galactica's got a bunch of other things to do. They've got other jobs rather than just also having to deal with public statements,
What about Jared? Why would you not consider him a PR person?
He is, but he's also a video content person. It's like, would you have, if there was a controversy around you, Tomato, you do video and like audio content, and you deal with people. Would you be able to handle like an outrage right now if there was some big scandal involving you? You'd be able to know how to deal with it. Oh no, Tomato was caught secretly drinking orange juice. How dare you? You betray the Tomato name.
It's not true. Don't listen to him. I don't do that, guys.
But I mean, like, I don't personally have the ability to handle like a crisis situation because I'm not trained to do such a thing, and I know that nobody at CIG is. So like, I don't know Jared's background. I know a little bit of it, but I don't know if he did work in PR. But if he was working in PR, that's what he should be doing, not video editing and video content and PR, because it's just such a complicated job. Right. That, especially with Star Citizen, you need somebody who's trained and practiced in how to talk to the community and how to defuse situations. Because often CIG does it to themselves. They as you said, 3 weeks of nothing, and then they finally come out with something. It's like, it's clear Jared was busy. And here's the main problem. CIG does not like to talk about things that are going wrong when they're going wrong. They will only talk about things when they have a solution to the problem, which means that there are long weeks or months or years where nothing is said, and then suddenly they come out and say, by the way, XYZ failed entirely, utterly. But don't worry, we've already built the replacement. And it's like...
Except they didn't have a replacement for this. They just had an explanation.
Yeah, because and that's the thing, is they knew they had to say something, but they didn't have a solution. So they had to say, do something in the meantime. I think
they've also really suffered from just how many people talk about the game from the company. I don't think most of the time those things make any sort of significant dent in the game overall. I mean, we're talking about official things coming from CIG. But a lot of times, like, a dev will make one offhand statement, and then that is something that people will just latch onto and sit on for a long time. A lot of people genuinely believe that CIG just, like, doesn't like industrial players or doesn't want things other than combat, because one person in a Star Citizen Live said that industrial salvagers are lazy or something. Somebody else in another Inside Star Citizen said that we want to have combat in the places where you're exploring, and like they take those things and it gets legs, and then there's no real, it seems like CIG doesn't see it as important to correct that stuff, which in the grand scheme of things it's probably not. But then it's like trying to have conversations about those things ends up getting so difficult for the community. And I think that does kind of hit this feedback loop that makes it less interesting, less fun to have discussions within the community. And the community is a big part of Star Citizen.
It is the Star Citizen. Without the community, Star Citizen wouldn't exist. And I think CIG knows that, and they're hyper aware of it. So they're trying to be careful. And it's just, there are some problems with being careful where if you are too careful, you let mushroom theory happen, where you're kept in the dark and fed filth, it just happens. People will, and there are, people out there who, for whatever weird reason, make their entire personality hating Star Citizen and spend years of their lives hating on a video game, which I never will understand. I get like, trolling and being like, I can bully these people, ha 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 ha. But it's like, isn't it like, are there better things for you to do in your life? But those people exist, and every single time there's any sort of problem, they will come out and immediately be negative. Those people are probably in the comments right now talking about how Star Citizen's a scam. And I know you and I go through content.
They wouldn't have gotten this far in.
It's true.
I would be so over this talk by now.
They would have gotten to the title and just posted about a 4-paragraph essay about how Chris Roberts personally insulted their parents or whatever. Like, we've all seen those.
Speaking of the big Chris, go ahead.
But my point is that, like, no matter what they do, they're always going to have problems. It's just a matter of managing those problems effectively, which I don't think CIG does. So
yeah. Speaking of Chris, though, many people would think that he probably made the call on pushing this event with the freight elevators, probably made the call on the explanation that came from Jared. Do you think that's true? Do you think he's the one kind of ultimately making these calls, or is there somebody else management-wise who's saying, this is a good idea, let's go ahead and go through with it? Yeah, I already told Chris, don't worry about him. Don't text him. Don't ask.
No, Chris is always in the loop. As far as I know from the people I know who work at CIG, he is still the final decider, but Chris isn't like a dictator. He isn't sitting there like on a throne being like, present your idea to me, junior developer, and I may approve. It's more of like the managers talk to their teams, and then they go to a manager meeting with, the heads of the company and Chris, and then they talk about, talk about thank you. They talk about, what they're planning on doing and how they can function it. So effectively, and it's because like basically all of the upper echelon, like Sean Tracy and Benoit and Chris, all of them code and we actually work on the game. So they're a little bit more in the woods or in the trenches. So they kind of have that connection. But I think Chris is still the one making the final call. I don't think there's some shadow cabal that's keeping Chris out of it. It's just Chris is involved in Star Citizen Squadron 42, and Squadron 42 is coming out in 2026, so he's probably focusing on Squadron. And then letting people like Benoit and, why am I blanking on his name? Who was the Rich Tyre, letting them deal with a lot of those problems, and then just sort of signing off when they say, hey, this is the idea. He might make some suggestions here and there, but I guarantee you he's just putting trust and faith in the people who are working, that he knows that work on the stuff. So
yeah, it seems like now that Benoit's in that CTO position, a lot of the communication on these important things ends up coming down to him. And I think that's kind of why they're slowly building up the hype around him being on Star Citizen Live. Because I want to say every time he has been on Star Citizen Live, with the first I'm thinking of being last fall, he has been really forthcoming about the bigger topics, server meshing, the persistence problems and stuff like that. So I do think maybe they don't have a PR person, but they're definitely starting to try and centralize where that info comes from. They just need somebody to do that when it comes to gameplay features.
I agree. I think Benoit is a perfect person because have you met Benoit in person?
No.
I had the pleasure to meet him when he first started working on Star Citizen because he showed up at GDC, and I was living in San Francisco at the time, or in the Bay Area at the time. And I went to GDC because there was a Bar Citizen at GDC. So I showed up at the Bar Citizen GDC, and Benoit was there. He knew who I was. He knew my name. And we were talking about the game. He was super passionate about it. And ever since then, whenever I run into him in an event, he knows who I am, talks to me about the game, and he's very forthcoming about everything. He's very much a fan of the game and wants to see it succeed. And so what you see when he talks on like Star Citizen Live, that's just who Benoit is. That's how he talks. That's how he like works with people. So he's a really good person, in my opinion, to do what they do. And his candid discussions are good. It's just hard to do a candid discussions with the CTO more than every 6 months because
Probably
he's busy. He's doing other things. So
he does have a job, folks. He's gotta he's gotta go into work.
But like one of my favorite things about it is he's been talking about forever that him and his team can do dynamic server meshing and wanted to do dynamic server meshing before they got to like before even they implemented static meshing, but they knew they had to do static so they could catch all the problems and then do dynamic. And as we've seen with monthly reports, they've been talking more extensively about them actively working on dynamic meshing. So it's nice for him to say something and then you see it and then he starts to follow up on the process. He's very like, we're going to tell you before, during, and after the whole thing. So
much better way to do things rather than we're going to tell you before and then you can wait. You can wait.
Yeah.
You can see if it's going to come and 2 years later. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So with this most recent kerfuffle, a talking point has returned. I don't think it ever really goes away. A lot of people just feel a certain kind of way about the way they release these features. Sometimes they release ships, events, content, locations, whatever it is they release. And then people try it, and within a couple days, players are like, oh, this is going to be a problem. So then the accusations start to come out that the developers aren't playing their game. They're not getting into the game. They're not getting the experiences that players are. And because of that, the development is a little bit tone deaf to how the game actually plays at the moment. Do you think that is true? Do you think part of what you said about developers not being able to come on ISC also means that they can't go and play the game during their time when they should be developing these things in 11 updates a month or a year?
100%. I mean, it's not a Star Citizen unique problem. That's how many times have we heard people's like, oh, developers don't play their game? Because I don't think they do. Like, how often do you watch your own videos, Tomato?
Probably more than I'm willing to admit. I like the content I make. I mean, that's why I make it.
I mean, I will catch myself going back and watching my lore videos and being like, man, I'm actually pretty good at this. This is entertaining because I forgot that I made it. But like, I can tell you right now, I don't watch the captain's table after I record it.
Oh yeah,
because
no.
I was there.
Yeah, I don't watch a podcast.
You know? But it's the same kind of thing because it's like work. Like why would they need to play the game? They've literally been playing it and testing it and then like playing it to make sure it works. But they don't play the final result. I do think that there are people who play Star Citizen because a lot of the people who work at CIG are Star Citizen fans, so they're going to play it. But if you are a member of like QA and you've been playing the game for bugs for 8 hours straight, and then you get home, you're not going to boot up Star Citizen to play the game that's buggy that you've just been playing that you know is buggy. So yeah, and this is just a culture problem in gaming, and I think it's because like most indie devs have the luxury of being able to play the game that they're making because they want to play the game. They want their game that they're making. So they're trying to make a game that they want to play. Whereas if you're being hired to work on a game, it's your job, not necessarily your passion. That game specifically, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think they play their own game. And I think it's just more of they don't have time, and they probably need to have some sort of dedicated player or dedicated groups of people who just play the game as a player experience. There's a player experience team, but they're not just sitting there playing the game every day. They're writing up reports, looking at data. They're doing surveys. They're trying to figure out what people outside of the company are experiencing, not really playing the game to be like, we could tighten it up here, kind of thing. I think that's what they're doing for Squadron, but it's just not for Star Citizen.
I really do hope at some point that happens for Star Citizen, because I think you can't let there be a disconnect between the everyday game experience and the things that the developers think are going on. That could definitely lead to problems. And I don't think that there should be like a panel of content creators or something like that, but I definitely think that CIG should be paying attention to the players that do the most of certain things in categories, and some of the players who only do some of those certain things, but getting a good cross-section of the community within a certain gameplay style. There's just so many different types of gameplay they're trying to put into Star Citizen. It's got to be impossible for them to track how those things feel on their own.
It's a vibe. To borrow parlance, it's just vibes. Like there's a difference between testing out to see if a feature works and getting out of your hab, going to spawn your ship, taking your ship to a mission location, doing the mission, encountering a player while you're doing the mission, getting into a firefight, getting injured, having to heal yourself, getting back to your ship, which is half damaged, flying it out to get it fixed, getting interdicted along the way, having to fight your way out of that, arriving at a location, landing at your ship, getting it repaired and refueled, leaving to go get, ammo. That whole process, which we've all done, that's a different experience entirely than just testing to see if the elevators work.
Right.
Yeah.
That was exhausting. Should they get, this is a question for you, this is a question for chat, for comments. Should the devs get paid to play the game during their work hours? Yes.
You're asking the wrong person. I'm like the kind of guy who's like, the devs should be paid better than any other, like they should be paid more than they're currently paid, just because I want them to make more money, because they're doing their passionate work, and game developers are often well underpaid for what they do and the time they put.
Yeah.
So then again, it's also at the same time, if you're being paid to play the game, like, is that actually valuable feedback, or is it just you clocking in?
Right. And what are you giving up in terms of your development time because of that? Will we see slower patches? Probably, which is why they can't do it this year with 10 to 11 patches. But like, it is kind of zero sum. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I do feel like if you're giving up time doing one thing, then obviously that's going to help and hurt other things.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about expectations going forward for the rest of the year. taking into account that it's very clear at this point that they are gung-ho, going full tilt. They are trying to get as much content as they can out this year, and I think it's like we are well into the year enough to know this. How do you think they're going to try and handle this period as we move into probably the most thick portion of the year for them? I'd say September, end of September, but October, November, December, big months for them. They try to put out quite a few ships. They have both CitizenCon, IAE, they have their Christmas celebration thing, Halloween event. There's going to be a couple free flies in there as well. With all this stuff going on, what do you think is their best play?
You want me to lay out my what I actually think is going to happen, or do I think it like my hopeful, aspirational of what they'll do?
Which one's more exciting?
So I do think that CIG is going to I'll do both. I'll just say I think the end of this year, no matter what, is going to be hype, because the developers have been working on these features for 6 to 9 months now, and they've had no way to releasing it. They've been testing it, they've been playing it, they've been making sure it works, but there's been no way of testing, like showing it off to us. And we know that they're currently working on a tech preview patch that they want to release with a bunch of new things to it. And it's not even engineering. It's like AI and something else. I can't remember what it is.
Vulkan testing, yeah.
So, and it just takes a while. That's why, because they have to like build they have to basically do a brand new branch to build it, and then build it, put everything in there temporarily to see if it works. It's not something as simple as just like push button, go. It's complicated. But that is one of many. And it's clear CIG is ramping up to try to do a bunch of tech previews, because they probably want to have Vulkan, new AI, engineering, crafting, scanning, all by the end of the year. Do I think they're going to get it? Probably not, but we'll at least see it, and we'll be able to play it, and we'll be able to kind of get feedback from it. And that's the big part that, as I said at the very beginning of this conversation, people want to play with it, touch it, do the things with it in order for it to feel real. So if it's in a tech preview that people can play, people will go, oh, it's not just a piece of paper. It's not just digitally on my screen as a Word document. It's a game that I can play and I can give feedback on. And that does wonders for the community in terms of their personality, in terms of their hope, their hopium reserves come back up. I just don't think they have enough time to do a lot of these things, because they have to get into tech preview and then test it and take back that information and come back and release it. Like that's like a couple month process, and we only have 5 months left in the year. So I think they'll get close, but I think it's gonna be like a March thing. But I think we'll be ending the year on a very positive note with that. They've talked about, like as you said, 4.3 is vibe, man. It is great. I love the Onyx facilities. It's such a good breath of fresh air, because it feels like I'm playing a video game. As weird as it says, like I can see the Half-Life influences, the Halo influences, Prey, Stalker. Like you can see the DNA of the games that CIG is interested in that event, in that thing. Like from the environmental hazards to the combination of two different enemy types to two different enemy factions, technically, to the complicated navigation and puzzles that you have to do, which aren't like super hard. It's just like jump puzzles combined with timing, combined with like maze navigation and figuring things out.
Yeah.
All with like a good reward at the end. Like that's good, and I think that's the blueprint going forward, because they also have their boss battle, which we know is going to happen at some point, that they want to put in the Star Ciizen PU. So like we're going to end, I think we'll end September, October with the end of the Dr. Yoret cycle, the regen crisis thing. And then we'll have a couple of tech previews. We'll have CitizenCon Direct. And then in November, we'll have IAE with the release of the Perseus, the Apollo, the new RSI salvager, and we'll probably have like, we had the Pyro Playground with like a couple years ago.
Some of the space
I think we're
stations
gonna
and
have,
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have the same thing, but with Nyx, because we know they're working on it. So I think they'll just have that sort of quick. Here, go play a Nyx. It's only Nyx, but you can go play it for, a week. So people can see that Nyx isn't going to take 5 years for them to implement. It's going to be much faster. So
strong beliefs out there that Nyx is gonna come to the PU this year.
Want to believe, but again, it's timing. We just haven't seen enough information that proves that it is. So it's hard to like say that it is, but I don't think it's that far off though. I think it's between March and like June of next year would be my guess from Nyx.
Yeah, it does feel like a next year kind of thing for me, but I also think the Ironclad is going to be a next year kind of thing, and maybe they'll surprise us on that too.
It's just in white box still, so I don't know how it's going to make it.
Yeah, yeah. That ship causes hysteria. People thought it was going to come in Invictus. Now we're seeing reports of it still looking like it's in white box, and people are still thinking it might come by the end of this year. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
It's positive. I think if CIG can manage to keep up producing content like Onyx, while also improving upon the experience overall, which they have. The bugs have been getting fixed here and there for the last year or so. It may not be at the speed or the cadence that people hope or wanted this year, but it is like, I remember when 4.0 came out, the number of 30Ks we're having was insane. We haven't really had 30Ks. We do have crashes the desktop and stuff like that, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. So that may sound pessimistic to some people, or even like that sounds bad, Paul. We're not going to get really anything. It's like, I don't think we're going to get any features, but we'll get our hands on them and we'll play them. And I know I would, and I'm sure most of you and yourself, Tomato, would much rather have a system that comes out, a feature that comes out and it works, and not one that's released and then takes 6 months to fix.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the frustration is really just that we haven't gotten to see it work. Like the way that the letter from the chairman phrased it, EPTU seemed like it was going to be used throughout the year. Obviously, they then went into January, realized that they had more to do on stabilizing things and getting things fixed than they probably even realized at the end of last year. And so the EPTU has not been used quite as much. But I think that if we had been seeing the feature development at the same time we're seeing all these content drops, I actually think that the vibes of this year for a lot of people would be drastically different. Because that really, I think, has a big mental impact of just the feeling that the game is not moving towards this Star Citizen 1.0, this amazing jump in, run a storyline, do some sandbox stuff, go meet your friend, and not have any problems kind of scenario people are imagining. And that goes for both features and the tech debt, things like the transport system that they're talking about.
Things like the transport system, we'll definitely see that this year. That'll come out. The transport system is Benoit is going to make sure that comes out because he hates it. He wanted to kill it. He personally felt offended by it. And the transport system it's fundamental to the game and how the game's going to function. So I think they will get that out, and they'll make a big deal about it being put in and explain how, because I'm sure it's more aligned to 1.0 in terms of what they see 1.0 as. And I'll say, just my talk with CIG devs, just casually when I do encounter them, is the one thing that's been consistent is, since we have a vision for what 1.0 is, everything feels different. We feel much more focused on what we're doing, and we have an idea of what we're shooting for. So we can just say, does this belong in this patch? And just go yes or no much faster, because it'll just be like, no, it doesn't help us. Good idea, but how does it help us get to 1.0? Doesn't? Put it aside. Let's work on this. Let's focus on that. And I think we can see that.
Even the stuff we're seeing,
yeah,
it clearly is 1.0 related. I mean, one of the biggest things I've noticed throughout this year is that every single thing that they add in terms of content. And just to be clear, we went, I want to say, like 3 or 4 years without getting new missions. Not even just a new mission type, but like expanded missions. We got some FPS
Same
stuff.
box missions over and over again, you know.
Yeah, we had gotten the not requisition, whatever the heck those missions were where you're supposed to go in the bunker and then wait for the boxes to be delivered and take them out. Those were a highlight when they were added. And we've gotten 3 or 4 deliveries of missions this year, similar to, if not bigger than that. So on top of just being a much greater delivery of these contracts, now I will definitely acknowledge that there are some that we should have from before that still haven't been added back in. But the ones they've been adding in have all been based around factions and guilds that were from the Star Citizen 1.0 panel. They've all had actual voiced actors that are delivering these contracts that, again, are related back to that 1.0 panel. And then also a lot of the stuff that's 1.0 related, from the dynamic rain to the sort of, I guess it's not really 1.0, but like things like the, now I'm mixing it. Just throwing in sandbox activities and locations that feel like they can fit into a game later rather than being something that's closed off now. They're clearly doing less events and more permanent additions. And I think all of that is trying to flesh out a game that's meant for 1.0 as opposed to just like something to test stuff out and keep you busy for now.
Just, you know, Jacob got this done over the weekend. Let's see if we can put it out there. And now it's less of that and more like, how can we use these ASD underground facilities for missions in 2027, you know?
Yeah.
So let's build this out so it actually makes sense, you know?
And I have one more question for
Sure.
you to close out with the 4.3 stuff. These locations, they added 120 of them. A lot of people are asking, are we just going to have 120 identical locations? What do you think is the explanation for why they've added so much of them? Just like looking all the same, doing the same storyline, all that stuff. And how do you think they're going to go from that to whatever the plan is longer term?
Licensing. This was I think we talked about this last time I was on the
Probably, man, yeah.
on the podcast. We talked about how like the thing that's blocking instancing is dynamic server meshing, and dynamic server meshing and instances are going hand in hand. Since they don't have dynamic server meshing, I'm sure it's soon. I think I would have thought it would have been done by this year, but then CIG did their whole, we're going to focus on, you know, content and bug fixes. So it was like, okay, so it's probably out the window now, but I still think it's probably next year, if not the end of this year. Well, they maybe even showed off at CitizenCon Direct. That dynamic meshing is sooner than people think. It's not going to be another several long years to wait. It's going to be like a year or so. Now, there could always be complications and other things come up and that doesn't work, but based off of the conversations that I had at CitizenCon with people like Benoit, it's clear that they had an idea of how it would work. It's just a matter of getting that idea out and testing it to make sure it works. And because instancing didn't make it, it's clear that the current cooperative zones, which I dubbed the cope zones.
Yes, that's right.
Because there was CIG coping if they thought that people weren't going to fight each other. These were designed as instanced locations. So you would go to one location, you would land with your party, and when you get out of the hangar into the main lobby, that main lobby is instanced. So now you're in a completely different instance to everybody else. Or maybe the main lobby is an instance, maybe it's each of the locations, the engineering or the research wing are instanced. So every time you go down there, it's a completely new instance for you to do. And the reason why we don't have, the reason why we have 120 facilities is because they couldn't get that done. So they're like, well, we need to be able to make it so that people aren't just going to constantly get griefed. We can't just make one facility. So let's do 120. So, because like if you do 120, and I'm sure that if the math works out in terms of like if everyone's rolling in a group of 4, 120 would be about everyone in the server could have their own experience if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny that
so
that is the solution, because before this year they never could have done that as the solution.
it would be physically impossible. And it's server meshing has allowed them to do that because they can spread that out. That they can do 120 facilities because there's 120 facilities spread over 10 or however many servers are for Stanton, like five servers. So it's much more feasible for them.
Yeah, and that's just like, that's how server meshing has allowed this game to be so much better. Not just because it's exploded the player count or something else like that. It's just given them so much more wiggle room to not just build things in that actually can make a difference because of their scale, but also lets them focus on other things. Like the transport system I'm very annoyed it didn't come in with 4.0. I'm annoyed it hasn't come in this year, to be honest, because we knew that this refactor was needed a long time ago, and they were working on it for a while too.
Almost like we've known that the outpost elevators have been needed to be fixed for a while.
And that stuff is annoying, but now that server meshing is in, at least they can actually do it.
Yeah, they don't have an excuse anymore, and it seems like CIG is finally going, well, we don't have an excuse, let's do it. I think there has been a concern in the community that CIG always has an excuse. Oh, well, what's the next hurdle they have to handle that's your excuse for not doing something?
Right.
And it's like, that doesn't exist anymore. And I think CIG is actually living up to that, because every time I've seen the developers being allowed to do their jobs rather than wait for some technology to be finished, we've seen how quickly they iterate. Mining, salvage, like FPS missions. When it was just go to bunker, shoot things, now it's like we've had, Siege of Orison, we've had the Ghost Hollow missions, we've had the new Security Point Korea, we've had the distribution centers, like just reams and reams of new places for FPS combat to happen since they've had more leeway to do that. And we've had now 3 different sandbox locations that specifically are focused around FPS, and all of them are different. Hathor is nothing like Stormbreaker, and Stormbreaker is nothing like Onyx. They're all super different in terms of how they approach them. It shows you just how much flexibility they're willing to go, and what CIG is willing to throw against the wall.
Yeah.
So, and it's once they have the background in, these developers can do their job. It's just they can't until they've been allowed to. So that's then one of those things that's been very encouraging this year, is to see them be able to run. And I know that they'll be able to run more once they get these next features out.
Yeah.
Scanning, all that kind of stuff.
I just like the idea that if they went for 2 years at this pace of adding locations like this, then I'm not saying that is what they're going to do, but if they did that at the end of those 2 years, we'd have quite a few different, like a variety of places to go to. And a lot of them are combat focused right now, but as more features do start coming in again, they can start to expand. I mean, everybody who says that they don't want to focus on things that are non-combat is ignoring the fact that CIG is acknowledging just how much the population exploded when they brought in a primarily cargo-focused event. And I know a lot of that might be for the rewards and the cool black and yellow you get from working for the absolute stain that is Hurston, but whatever. Like, it shows that people want to do things other than combat, and I think CIG knows that. And if they can keep focusing on adding locations that can build on those things, not just with their initial drop, but by tying in other kinds of missions, deliveries, and find missing person, and go mine this or go salvage that, that's super healthy for this game. No, I'm not picking you up. Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay. If CIG released Nyx, they could. They could release Nyx if they had it done. They could release it right now. There's nothing that's preventing it from happening. It's just they want to release. They want to get dynamic server meshing out, so it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg. To do it. That's the key. But there's literally nothing stopping them from doing it other than the cost. We could have already had Nyx if CIG was being allowed, if the developers who would be focusing on that were allowed to focus on that, just because of the tools they have. Like, it's clear that they are hitting paces that I've never seen them do before, and it's encouraging. And the problem is that a lot of us are old, and we remember we've been here every single patch, and so it seems like, oh, this isn't that much. But then you pull back, it's like someone who got involved in the game yesterday comes into the game now. There is 100 to 200 hours of gameplay you can do of any sort of experience. Maybe only like 20 to 30 hours of individual experiences. They're not very repeatable.
10%
like,
dealing with glitches.
A lot of it is glitches, of course. But like this, in terms of content, there's just not a lot of places outside of Star Citizen that have that much content that isn't just sort of built into its frame. Battlefield 6 is Battlefield 6. You're not going to get anything outside of the Battlefield 6 experience. It might be good and repeatable, but it's just going to be whatever you have for however that long. I love Helldivers 2, but Helldivers 2 is the same experience, just sort of modified here and there every so often. Whereas, like, in Star Citizen, it's legitimately insane in terms of the amount of content they've done for every gameplay style. And we often forget about that. So, like, no, and they're going to do more. Like, they're not stopping because they paid 1,000 employees to do this, and they're just going to do it. So, yeah.
I really want to hear about both salvage and medical gameplay taking a step up soon, though. I gotta say, they need to, at the very least, share about plans going into that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, man. This has been a good talk, I think, about CIG's latest communication and what it means for the game, how people feel about it. I'd love to hear what people in the comments think of it, because it's genuinely, it is a moment for CIG to acknowledge when they've messed up. But the way that they acknowledge that and the time they do, I think there's a lot of discussion to be had around that, the effect that it could have on the community and how they follow up with it, I think is pretty important. So I'd love to see what other people think, but thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Pub, Mr. Historian. Can you let folks know where they can find more of your rambles and rattles about Star Citizen and lore?
Well, thank you for having me. Specifically, you can follow me on youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive, youtube.com/@the Captain's Table Podcast. If you want stuff like this, I do the Captain's Table Podcast every Saturday. Well, not every Saturday.
Good show.
But Saturdays. You'll see this man here sometimes on there. And I bring people from all over the Star Citizen community to talk about the game, whatever is happening. And I also play the game Thursday. Well, I don't play it on Thursday, but I stream Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and I play like half the time I'm playing the game. So if you want to come see me play the game, because a lot of people don't realize I do, check me out there, and also at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. And if you want my my lore content, I showed this to Tomato already, but the complete history of Star Citizen Part 5 is done, and it's been released for the Patreons, and it'll be out for everybody else on August 29th. So it'll be... and if you're a member on my YouTube, you'll get access to it next Saturday. So it's a slow rollout for people who've backed the project, my project of me doing lore stuff. Yeah, I've got a lot of things coming up. I'm going to be doing a kind of taking all of my videos of the every ship of the UE Navy and turning it into one video for like a kind of a compilation for everyone to enjoy. I've got one, you mentioned Hurston. I actually got a complete documentary on the complete history of Hurston Dynamics and the Hurston family. That's coming out soon, so that's a fun one. I love the Hurstons.
Kill that thumbnail, man. You got to kill that thumbnail.
I don't know how I'm going to kill it. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have to figure it out. I'll have to pull the brain trust of Space Tomato and Garden to help me out with that one, because
I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be
definitely going to be.
Listen.
I love that I managed to do this right when they're doing this, so that like when Hurston wins, I could be like, hey y'all, this is what you supported.
Look what you've done. Look who now owns our jump point.
Yeah. So that's gonna be fun. I love them because they're such drama queens. It's so great to watch them fight amongst each other and do absolutely horrible things to everyone. It's like,
I just want to be messers.
Yeah, they are, which is funny. It's so good. But they also got some cool stories about, like, how they made the Slayer cannon and the other bespoke cannon for the Storm. Like, they have close relationships, and they're the only ones who've built or one of the few groups that have been able to build antimatter weaponry for the human military. So they're very interesting. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. You can check me and let that stuff out there.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again so much for joining. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you did on YouTube, if you're listening on your favorite audio platform, we are across all of them. And I like to throw on my pocket casts in the car while I'm driving around. So I know some people like to listen to this while driving. And if you are on YouTube, but you want something a little easier to pocket, check us out on Spotify. Drop a review maybe if you'd like, and share it with your friends. A lot of Star Citizen folks looking for Star Citizen podcasts. You got 2 of them right here. So
yeah, you find my stuff on Spotify as well. So
Yeah. And thank you everybody for listening. I hope this gave you some information, something to ponder, something to think about. Leave your comments down below what you guys are thinking, and I will see you all. Oh, next week we have actually a special show coming up. Definitely drop by. So we will be bringing on the folks from Jump Space to talk a little bit about the upcoming fun little group multiplayer thing. Yeah, so they're doing a Gamescom thing. They'll have an announcement date, and we will be chatting them up a little bit. So make sure to swing by on that one.
Those devs are great. They're wonderful.
Yeah, they are. I'm looking forward to what that game is going to be when the freaking release date so we can play it. All right, y'all. See y'all next week.